So the plan for today is for us as a panel to take the first 20 minutes or so to share information about the MFA program and the application process. And we'll leave another 20 minutes or so for questions that you might have. You can go ahead, if questions arise along the way, you can go ahead and put them in the chat area as you think of them. We're going to talk about the program structure and funding, application requirements, the curriculum and navigating the program, living in Columbus, Ohio, and where you can find more information about current faculty and graduate student research and interests. So I'd like to begin by introducing who we are. I'm Dr. Harmony Bench. I'm currently the chair of our Graduate Studies Committee. I mostly teach in the history and theory areas of at the graduate level, as well as ballet technique. My own research focuses on dance, the screen, and digitality. Should we maybe start here and work our way across?
I'm Brianna. I'm in the third year of my MFA here, and I'm researching interactive technology and choreography and how these can make space for multiple perspectives of the audience and of the performer.
Hello, I'm Dr. Hannah Kostrin. I'm on the Graduate Studies Committee. I mostly teach history and theory in the graduate program. I also teach a little bit of that in the undergrad program, and I teach love on movement notation and analysis. My research focuses on Jewishness and gender and diaspora and ethnicity and nationalism in modern and contemporary dance.
I'm Crystal Michelle Perkins. I'm an assistant professor. My areas are contemporary movement practice, classical ballet, composition. I am on the Graduate Studies Committee, and I consider my research area to be Black female performance in contemporary dance.
And I'm Amy Schmidt. I'm the academic program coordinator for the Department of Dance, working with both undergraduate and graduate students. I'm also an MFA alum of the program.
Fabulous. So now you know who we are. A little bit about the MFA program. It's a 3-year residential program. So what that looks like is that in the first 2 years, you'll take coursework in the areas of creative process, movement practice, and what we call history, theory, and literature. And along the way, you'll develop a research trajectory through this coursework. Our graduate examination process is split up into 3. So at the end of each year, there's a component, an opportunity to share what you've learned through your coursework and through independent research and through your own creative process and work. In the 3rd year, that culminates with a final project that usually takes the form of a choreography, a performance, but could also be a lecture demonstration or some other appropriate format. Along the way, we do our best to support graduate students with funding. We submit every eligible applicant to a university-wide competition for fellowships. Applicants are evaluated primarily on the basis of undergraduate GPA, the strength of letters of recommendation, and particularly academic letters of recommendation. So it's really important that those letters be strong. And the recommendations that we write on your behalf based on your application materials. So we make an argument for every person coming into our program. If you are awarded a fellowship, it's generally for 1 year, although there are some circumstances of 2- and 3-year fellowship awards. Generally what happens is that we try to fund our graduate students with a combination of teaching assistantships, they're called GTAs, graduate teaching assistantships. I will say that one of the exciting things about being an MFA at OSU is that you get to be a lead instructor for studio courses and also sometimes in the general education area, which we feel makes our graduates more competitive after graduation, particularly if you're going into an academic environment. There isn't a guarantee regarding funding. Everything has to be applied for. And like I said, the fellowship opportunity is a university-wide competition, but funding really is a priority for us, and we do our best to make graduate study feasible with financial support. So that's what I'm talking about. I believe Professor Perkins is next on the roster.
I am. There'll be a little bit of overlap, but I wanted to share with you the kind of the description of the program and what the difference is between what we have here, which is project-based, and what other kinds of programs might be thesis-based. So there are a lot of differences, but there's a lot of differences, but that's a major one. So every MFA program has an outlined, clear, comprehensive examination protocol that will track student progress and coordinate success. It's usually done 1 to 3 years, and through the completion of a creative project, written support of the student's research, what we call a thesis, somewhere between 20 and 40 pages in length, and a final meeting in the 3rd year or the final year of the program with the project committee that's called an oral defense. We sort of depart from that thinking here. The MFA in dance at OSU sees the weight and rhythm of the creative project and comprehensive exam differently. We are a project-based degree program geared to developing embodied research that demonstrates a synthesis of craft, artistic vision, and conceptual rigor. So as a terminal degree, we think that students best achieve this through the depth and breadth over a 3-year period of immersive choreographic investigation through studio practice. And that road to graduation is equally divided across 3 years, dealing with reflective writing, oral examination, and the creative project. We call our oral defense a final examination. We'd like to invite students to participate who are interested in practice-based projects in a broad range of areas. So if you're interested in choreography or performance, dance, film, and creative technologies, this might be the place for you. In terms of applying, you'll need a few things. You'll need a scanned copy of your official transcripts for all of the universities and institutions that you've attended. Curriculum vitae, which is a longer version of your resume. It's really all-encompassing. A minimum of 3 letters of recommendation that speak to your artistic and academic strength. And if you're interested in funding, 2 of them must be from someone at an academic institution. Something else to note here is that our MFA program does not require the GRE unless your undergraduate cumulative GPA falls below 3.0 on a 4.0 scale. You'll also need an autobiographical statement, which will be a part of fellowship or funding application materials. And this just really helps us think about who you are, why do you want to come to graduate school, and situates your thinking about research and practice at the current time. It's 1 to 2 pages in length. You'll need a writing sample. That usually falls between 4 and 20 pages. And that writing sample might be a process paper, a position paper, some sort of scholarly essay or critical review document that you've written. One of the most important pieces of your application materials will be your portfolio. This is the area we get a lot of questions in. What do you include? Everything can go in this that falls into your creative practice. So choreographic samples, performance reels, lighting plots, anything that really situates you as an artist in this craft. You'll turn that in on a PDF or a doc with links to YouTube or Vimeo and a small 2 or 3 sentence description of what that work is to help guide us through it. So after you submit all of these materials, another really wonderful thing about our MFA is that you, as an applicant, are already invited to attend the on-campus interview. So we have this in 2 parts. The on-campus interview happens in January. At the on-campus interview, you'll be able to tour the facilities, meet some of the current students, ask more questions about faculty and student research, observe movement practice classes, creative process labs, and attend some of the graduate seminars. Each applicant will also participate in a one-on-one faculty interview where the goal is to learn more about your research interest and background. The last thing that happens is that interviewees take part in a 3 or 4 part audition class. It's usually ballet, contemporary dance, an Africanist form or a global form of some sort, and improvisation. This is really about observing you in a community of movers and less about observing your technical prowess. We'll also like to see a 3-minute solo of original work. Lots of times people perform work that they've choreographed themselves, but you are also welcome to bring a solo that someone has made. So I think that's it.
Thank you. Thanks. So I will follow up a little bit with some of what you'll find in our program. The main things that I will talk about are the kinds of classes that we offer in terms of stuff that will benefit you later in terms of marketability, and then also touch a little bit on faculty mentoring. So in terms of our curriculum, in addition to all of the movement practice and creative practice courses that you'll take, all the studio-based work, we do require all of our MFA students to take 2 classes in what we call our HTL area, as Dr. Bench mentioned earlier. This stands for History, Theory, Literature. It's basically dance studies, which is the study of dance history, dance ethnography, dance theory. And we require all of our MFA students to take 2 courses in this area for a couple of reasons. One, those courses will help deepen your practice. You'll learn the history of certain forms that you're interested in. You'll think more theoretically about some of the questions that you're asking. And so we really think of that as a reciprocal relationship between those courses and your studio work. And the other thing is that being in those courses also gives you that material, so that if you are interested in an academic job after your MFA, those courses will help with your marketability. You may also end up being a TA in some of our general education lecture courses. But regardless, the courses that you take will give you a deeper breadth within the field. And so oftentimes when you are applying for even studio jobs, studio-based positions at universities, they also want you to teach some kind of seminar or lecture course. And so these courses really help with your marketability. Something else that our university offers across departments is something called the Graduate Interdisciplinary Specialization. And this is a cluster of classes underneath a kind of theme. And it also gets you into an area that you are interested in. It's not required, but it is a really exciting option. And there are courses that are across departments. Some of them, I just pulled a couple of examples. This is not an exhaustive list, but they include things like Chinese cultural studies, or disability studies, or Latinx studies, or sexuality studies. So if those and others on this list of like 25 are interesting to you, they are available for you and will enrich your work here and also kind of speak to the kinds of things that you can bring to your next stop along your professional journey. In terms of faculty mentoring, our department has a very high contact level with our students. Mentoring is very important to us as faculty. And so what will happen is that in your first year in the program, you're assigned what we call a contact advisor. And you meet with that person kind of regularly through the first year, maybe every other week, maybe once a month. Everybody does it a little bit differently, but it's a time to check in and to make sure that you're tracking well through the program. It may or may not include a discussion of your work, but there are different ways that people do it, but it is consistent. You'll have that kind of attention. And then in your second year, you are assigned your project committee, your MFA project committee. It's usually 2 people, a chair, and a second committee member. And then those people will mentor you through your MFA project. I will say this is a program where we take mentoring very seriously of our graduate students. We do not disappear. And we also expect that you do not disappear. So, you know, I think it's fair to say that sometimes our students wish we paid a little less attention. But you can trust that you're going to have a very close working relationship with the faculty.
Thank you. I think piggybacking on that, as I auditioned at different schools, this one stood out to me because of the community that I could perceive at the audition. It was so evident. And so I think this has a lot to do with these faculty relationships and also this office that we have where we each have our own desks and we can talk to each other in the middle of the day, deep conversations, helping problem solve, whatever it is. We are truly mutually supportive. And I think I didn't want to be a part of a program where I felt like I had to compete to get anywhere, and that's not what it's like here. Another thing that stood out to me was that there is a PhD program here, which means that there are these history, theory, and literature classes that have been spoken about, which really foster engaging your work in what's present now and in the context of what is happening, so that it matters. And so while only 2 are required. I will take 4 by the time that I graduate, but it is a practice-based program. I have taken a number of practice-based courses too, a dance film that has been shown at festivals, and Crystal's autoethnography class, which really helped me figure out what my creative voice is in this world. It was a solo composition course. I've taken courses in a program that's right across the hall from us. It's called ACAD, which stands for, I have it written down because I can never remember, Advanced Computing Center for the Arts and Design. So so we have a lot of technology in our department. That's not something you have to do, but because we have this close working relationship, it happens a lot for us. It's so handy, and a lot of collaborations happen that way. And I've also taken classes in the art department that have influenced my research now. And then I feel sane when I take technique class, so I've taken way more of those than I need to also. But we have a number of somatics classes, Africanist technique, ballet, contemporary, and the list goes on. Those are some that I've taken. Okay, and then, as was mentioned, we get the opportunity to teach, so we have that under our belt by the time we're applying for jobs. By the time I leave here, I will have co-taught a partnering methods class where I teach contact improvisation, and my co-teacher teaches Palabolian partnering forms. I'm teaching a dance composition course and have TA'd for another one of those courses. I've a couple semesters of ballet, various levels of contemporary, and TAing for the general education course. So I've got an experience grading papers and working with people on their writing and reading and do they mean what they're actually saying, those kinds of things, which I think makes me well-rounded as I apply for jobs. And the funding here was better than anywhere that I looked. And it's really affordable to live here. So I am, for the first time in my life, I'm able to live by myself and pay for it. I've also had a grant for my MFA project, which is covering me collaborating with a visual artist in the field and a student who is studying electronic music, and for a lot of various supplies that I need for my project, and have been funded to present a paper that I wrote in Dr. Bostron's class overseas, and other funding to go to workshops and things. So there's a lot of funding opportunities here. Finally, I'm over my 3 minutes, but the Wexner is right across the street from us, and they bring a lot of really cool artists. Nora Chipalmire is here this weekend, and check out their website because they do a lot of things that I won't list right now. We are also making an arts district, so we have the dance building right here, the Wex right next door. Art and music is nearby, and they're building this wonderful theater building right across the street from us. So all of this will be all in a circle together so that collaboration is even more possible. And then finally, there actually is a bit of dancing that happens in the community here outside of the Wexner. There are a few local companies and various showcases for independent choreographers. In this past weekend, for example, 3 of our MFAs performed their work at a showcase that happened locally. So let me know if you have any more questions about what's going on here.
Amy, would you like to screen share and walk through
the website?
The application?
Alrighty, the test
and,
of technology.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Cross your fingers that this works.
All right. So I'm just sharing our Department of Dance website, the landing page. You can see right away there is this apply to the MFA program link. I would also point out that there is our Inform newsletter, which is a quarterly publication that our communication specialist makes, talking about faculty, students, staff, events that are happening in the department. It's a nice way to keep up with news. Where you will want to see, hello, Crystal. Where you will want to go, of course, is you can go through this long menu to get to the MFA program and apply, or we will use our handy dandy shortcut to apply to the MFA program. And the things that Crystal mentioned with each of the items that you need, we tried to put as much information and links here as possible. As you can see, our application deadline is approaching. Thank you for joining us ahead of time for this November 15th. This link, I'll go ahead and go to it for a moment. You can see that there's different tabs, and sometimes people are asking, you know, even if I don't get funding, what is the cost of living? and the tuition. And so the Graduate Admissions Office has kindly collated all of that information for us, both for domestic and international students. The funding tab really kind of gives the sentences of what Dr. Bench shared. The criteria referring to things that are overarching for all graduate students at Ohio State, but then this link for the dance program will take you right back to the page that we were just at. And then the lovely apply button. Apply, 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 apply. Now I'll go back to our website that has a sample audition schedule. So this is where we have a general, this is what we typically follow for PhDs are a separate session, but there is a day that is specifically for them. The Friday is a visit day for both MFA and PhD applicants. And you can see kind of the breakdown of what that looks like. There are a few tweaks, of course, but this is a general outline. And then Saturday, that is for the MFA applicants only, referring to the audition and the showings. And I'll go back up. Sorry for the fast scroll. And we've talked through a bit more verbiage. I'm just getting down there a little more quickly. Again, the transcript. The one note I will give about this is that this is a graduate admissions requirement, and they do want a copy of an official transcript. So that doesn't mean something that you logged on to your institution's website and said, here's my informal grade report. They do want it to actually look like a transcript, but it's fine that it's a transcript that you have opened, that you now scan, and that you upload. This is really helpful for our review purposes and for your application being timely. Once you're admitted to the university, then they will ask for an official transcript that is sent directly from institutions where you have been directly to Ohio State without using you as an intermediary or me as an intermediary. No one in the middle, but save that for if you're admitted so you can save the cost of transcripts. The autobiographical statement, again, talking about what are the things that are really you. I would just advocate, don't start with a quote from someone else. Make this all your voice, please. This really is the one point I think that the committee really gets to hear you. The transcript is what it is. Your vita is what it is. Your portfolio is what it is, even though you are curating it. Your writing sample is what it is. But the autobiographical statement is really the chance to hear your voice. And so make it good, do drafts, have other people read it. Small but substantive, I would say. Again, talking about the CV, the portfolio. Please do guide reviewers by identifying yourself or giving other context to the work that you're sharing. Again, the writing sample can be a wide variety of things. It's really just to see how is your writing and where is it now. The letters of recommendation, I do get questions about, we have a minimum of 3, but more is wonderful. If you want to do more than the 3, you're welcome to email those directly to dance@osu.edu, and that will come to me, and then I'll put it with your other application materials for the committee to review. It's also nice to have extra recommendation letters just in case one of your recommenders is late or traveling or otherwise not able to submit the letter before November 15th for you. It is absolutely fine to submit the application first, and then you can return later to upload documents. So don't feel like you have to get the stress of everything being ready instanta. You can submit your application, go back, add this. If you were like, shoot, that was the wrong version, you can re-upload or re-email a corrected version, and that is just fine. It is great to have all of that by November 15th, but I don't give the committee your file until like a day or 2 later, so you have a tiny bit of wiggle room.
Only a tiny
bit. If you are applying for an application fee waiver, remember that does go through graduate admissions. It is not us. And so if you are requesting a fee for various reasons, really do watch your email, because they will ask for possibly various follow-up documents before they apply the fee waiver. And if they're waiting on something from you and I'm like, I can't see your application, and you're like, but I sent it in, check the email for something about the fee waiver. The GRE is, again, not required unless your GPA is below a 3.0 on a 4-point scale. If you're not sure, because it is cumulative, not just here's what I graduated with, but here's GPA from this institution, that institution, that institution. It's looking at all of that. So if you're not sure, upload those copies of official transcripts sooner rather than later, and then admissions will be reviewing them and find out in their process, oh, you're below, you need a GRE. And again, it's nice to know that earlier rather than later. However, I'll also say that if you find out after November 15th that you need to take the GRE, don't panic, just schedule it and do it. But as long as we have it by like the middle of January, basically by the audition date, you're still fine. We don't need it for our review process, but the university will need it before we could admit you. So there's my spiel. I will also point out, Dr. Bench mentioned about seeing the profiles of the faculty. Under About, Faculty Staff Directory, click that puppy, arf, arf. And then you can see both faculty and staff listed. If you would like to filter out and only see faculty, you can unselect staff. And Dr. Bench is always first because she is alphabetically prominent. And so, and you can see all of us. I'll just pick on Crystal since she's right next to me. There she is. There's her awesome bio, her contact information, areas of expertise, etc. Same for Dr. Kostrin, also a beautiful profile picture. Again, awesome bio, contact information, and bonus points for having her own website. So you can see even more. Yes, conversations are best though, honestly. Other thing of note is our gallery. I highly recommend perusing this. If you get to performances, these will take you to various links for videos, dance film, also links for videos, dance research, faculty highlights, faculty research, graduate student research. I will note that this is something that is always in flux because everyone is paying different levels of attention to technology. Brianna, can I show yours?
Sure.
Is it kind of, oh, you're not linked. Can I pick
on?
Yeah. So not everyone going to do.
You can type it in if you want.
Okay, I have permission to pick on Catherine Logan here. So these are usually sites that they have made as the result of being in a graduate seminar class or sometimes their own expertise. So places to look at projects, about, etc. This is Catherine's third year MFA project that she is doing part 1 of next week. Yes, feel free to peruse the gallery, our website, etc., etc., etc. Go back home.
Great. All right, so that's the information that we wanted to make sure that we shared with you, and we're very eager to hear whatever questions you all have for us, either about the program or about the application process or any other questions that you might have. And we do know that there is a delay in the actual physical act of typing out questions, so no worries there, but we are eager to hear from you and answer any questions that you might have. I'm wondering if, Brianna, you were talking earlier about the art scene in Columbus. I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit more as a graduate student, like where you have found support or interest or opportunities with the community, anything like that.
I wonder if I'm not the best person to ask because I'm kind of a homebody, but One of the grad students has started this, I don't know what it's called, but there's an arts collaborative maybe, and so she's setting up now collaborations at I think there's a studio, this performance space, and they're setting up collaborations with musicians and dancers right now, and that performance is coming up. I am collaborating with a visual artist who got his MFA here a while ago on my MFA project, but I'm trying to think of what other things.
How did you find said visual artist?
I found said visual artist through a faculty person here. Yeah.
Did you take a course, or a faculty person brought you together?
A faculty person brought me together.
There is also the Interdisciplinary Arts Seminar, where students from different arts disciplines do come together kind of explicitly for the purpose of cross-disciplinary collaboration and forging relationships. In terms of the community, we have Flux and Flow, which is a recent addition to our dance scene, which is a great little space offering movement classes and workshops. Do you want to talk about anything in the community, Lincoln Theater, or anything that happens?
Or Dayton.
Or Dayton.
Well, Columbus is about 70 miles from Dayton, Ohio. It takes about an hour and 10 minutes to get there, but the Dayton Contemporary Dance Company is there. It's a company that I still work with and in and around. There's also the Lincoln Theater that's here. That's an excellent community partner for OSU Dance, where Susan Bradford Kunta runs Chasan West African Dance Institute, which is a way in which OSU Dance is trying to collaborate to think about what the African diaspora looks like across our curriculum. And so the drummers often accompany class here. There are opportunities to go down to the Lincoln Theater. There are opportunities to go down to the Dayton Contemporary Dance Company, Flux and Flow, you've already mentioned. We talked about the Columbus Dance Theater.
Yeah.
We talked about the Columbus Dance Theater. So there's just lots of ways for you to get involved or create your own path across the campus and across the community.
We don't have anybody doing this right now, but we have in the past had people who were interested in burlesque performance find inroads in the community. So that's also, if that is the particular area of investigation. So yeah, it looks like you have a question.
Did your mentors and teachers help you find funding and publishing opportunities, or is that something you did on your own?
They definitely did help me. I think Dr. Costrin really helped me, especially because I wrote that paper in her class, really telling me about what was available and helping me get the materials ready, writing me a presentation. Much. Yeah.
Deep interim.
Yes. And I haven't actually sought publishing opportunities, but I'm sure that you help, especially with the PhDs, find publishing opportunities for papers. For performing, there are often newsletters that come out that tell us about performance opportunities. So that happens on the blog, and we get emails about them. So that's something that the whole department is working for us to do. But some of the work is done on my own too. But I really think that maybe it's not so much about, or it is definitely about mentors and teachers, and also about other students and talking with other students and asking for help and asking what people know about. So I think the community works from all levels for that.
For example, how did you decide for the workshops that you attended in the summers, sometimes for your research? How did you find those?
I found those searching the internet. I was
the internet.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what I did a couple of years ago. This last year, I went and got funding to go to Earth Dance, and I think we emailed a little bit, but I found those on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, I will take a moment. I can share very quickly blog, as we call it. It's not linked from.
While you're pulling that up, I'll just mention that we have something called the Semesterly Funding Initiative. And we also have the way we structure the MFA proposal. It mirrors the grant application for what is called the AGRS, I don't even know. Alumni
Graduate.
Yeah.
This is our weekly with tons of links. I will go to the grad school website now.
Okay. So we try to assist students in familiarizing themselves with the language of grants, with the practice of applying for things. So a lot of those are built into the program itself, structured into the program design. And then, of course, as a student and as a researcher, one has to additionally find opportunities on one's own. But we do try to show you the ropes.
I think right from the very beginning with the foundations and dance research class, right from the very beginning, we're learning to write in a way that helps us apply for grants. And so it is something that I've practiced for 3 years, so that by the time I applied, there were 3 of us in the department who applied last year, and all of us got the funding we asked for. And I think a lot of this has to do
For your
with
final project.
for our final projects, the AGRS.
Yes.
In terms of funding and professional opportunities, I think the other thing that's probably important to mention is that our graduate handbook is quite thorough. And so we really believe in information around here.
We love words.
Sharing information, not hiding information, not making people dig for things. We often send to each other, oh, I know that you have this student. This doesn't work for any of my advisees, but maybe your advisee might be interested in this. So there's a lot of conversation about what sort of support students need and a lot of ways for us to offer that information, whether it's the OSU blog, via email, or listed in the handbook. You shouldn't have to scrape, beg, borrow, and steal to try to find some support for your research work.
But you do need to read.
But you do need to read,
Yes.
and you do need to ask
Yeah.
questions.
Yes. Reading is really important.
Brianna, could you talk a little bit more just about what it is to live in Columbus if people are looking to move here from other locales that maybe on the surface seem a little more desirable?
I'm from the Midwest, so that part feels pretty familiar to me, but there actually are a lot of really cool restaurants around here, and with what we've talked about with the dance scene, I also think that I'm busy, and so it doesn't feel like there's ever even a chance to feel bored with Columbus. But there's actually quite a bit happening in this city, and people don't know that from the outside.
Yeah.
It's all of the activity when the football games are away. There's usually at least 6 dance events scheduled that weekend.
That's
because traffic is palatable on those weekends. It's really hard to get to everything. A lot of good work.
Are there other thoughts that we would like to share or other questions from our guests?
Ohio people are nice. They're really nice.
Ohio
Like we look at each other and smile, even if we're strangers in the street. That's something that, so I escaped Arkansas to come to Ohio. And so I appreciate my Southern experience very much. But I also really like Ohio and the way that there's opportunities to do as much or as little as you want with nice people.
Amy, was there a nuts and bolts thing you were going to do?
Another nuts and bolts? I love nuts and bolts. Email me anything.
There was a question about letters.
Yes. Letters of recommendation when you have graduated some time ago. Yes. So we know that that's tricky because sometimes faculty or other mentors from the institution may have moved on. If you can reach them, wonderful. That's also a nice opportunity to get extra letters. So to get the perfunctory from academic institution that you can hopefully reach, but then also if it's an academic institution that you have worked for, or if it's an academic institution that you had other interactions with, is also great. professional references from companies, supervisors. The main thing is to try to get at least more than one paragraph out of them. One paragraph is really not helpful. Yeah, I don't know if there's other things that you look for.
Well, one thing that you might consider, and this is something that I request of my students when I write them letters, whether they are currently my student or whether it's been a while, is that I ask them to tell me what it is that they're applying for. And to send me their current CV and to send me some of their current work so that I can speak to what's been going on. So, if you've graduated a while ago and you're contacting professors from then, you might need to take a few paragraphs catching up. Here's what I've been up to. Here I'm applying to grad school. Here's why I'm applying to grad school. Here's what I'm interested in. Here are links to my recent work. Here's my CV. And that will help them kind of get some context around you and your work, both when you were a student, which is probably what they're going to focus on, and then also things that you're doing now. And those faculty members will probably also send you and say, great, and now I also need these other things so that I can write this letter. So just be ready for that back and forth.
Yeah, and do that sooner rather than later, because particularly if you're reaching out to people that you have to reestablish a connection with, sometimes there's a wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I remember and I can do this. Yeah. I would also say that in addition to if you have worked in an academic environment, if you have people who are in your corner that know you in a professional context but happen to be academics, really we're looking on the one hand for a description of how your academic achievement, but also people who can situate your work critically. So if you have, if your number one fan is like, a person who belongs to the dance department in your area, even if they weren't your teacher, you can also seek out a recommendation from them because they know your work and can speak to your work and situate it in a field. So that would be another path to consider. I don't know if it applies in your particular circumstance, but it might be worth thinking about. I have another question.
Well, I was going to add one more thing with letters of recommendation, is that they don't have to be from dance faculty. We know that some institutions, there wasn't an option to do a major in dance. You were majoring in something else. And so it's fine for it to be sociology professor, chemistry professor. It doesn't have to be strictly within the field of dance. It would be nice to have at least one letter from the field of dance, certainly. But if in order to get an academic letter, you had this awesome relationship with your psychology instructor, that's a great letter of recommendation. Someone who could speak to your work as a student. The other question, work-life balance isn't going to be balanced when working on an MFA. True. But do you find students that are able to make time for outside part-time jobs, teaching at local studios or other work? When I was a student, yes.
I have not, and I have not needed to because of the funding, but I do know that there are a number of people who've worked at Ballet Met, which is another local company we haven't mentioned yet, working at their school. I think at least probably 5 people in the last few years have worked at Ballet Met teaching classes.
Certainly in the summers as well.
Oh yeah.
Maybe could you be a little more explicit about what funding means in terms of the kinds of work that they can expect and the kinds of compensation that they can expect?
Good. Okay, so one would hope that if you have a funding package, that there isn't a need for a part-time job. Obviously, people's financial situations vary, but to me, this question kind of has 2 parts. One is work outside, and one is work-life balance. So the hope would be the kind of generic situation that I would say 80% of our graduate students fall into is there's a 1-year fellowship which covers your tuition and fees. Does it cover and stipend? Then
part of student health insurance.
And part of student health insurance. So there's not a whole lot else. If you want like the Ritz-Carlton, then that's going to be a little bit more in terms of rent. But that's not generally the people that we're looking for this program. Then when you have a graduate teaching assistantship, it's very similar. The difference being that you at a 25% level, have 10 hours a week of work. At a 50% level, which is most of our, almost all of our students, you have 20 hours of work. And you also, it covers your tuition and fees, and you get paid. I don't know the current rate of pay, but that would be something that you can find online through the graduate school.
I will say that the fellowship stipend is typically a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Because you're essentially being paid to go to school. The graduate teaching associate position, ironically, is slightly lower because you're working. It's also dictated by our college, not by our department. And so, but it is, the graduate school and the graduate admissions office have worked really hard to figure out, okay, cost of living is this, what is the minimum that anyone can really be expected to do in Columbus, and the all graduate stipend must meet that minimum. Some are higher in different departments or other colleges. Ours is a nice base, I would say. We have some students that were like, but I really want to keep teaching a studio class, or I really want to keep doing Starbucks because it's a non-stressful.
It's nothing related to this.
It's not my brain being used, and that is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
We definitely don't ever say you can't do that. There's not that. There's a, is that all right for you? But it's not.
Yeah, it's more, is that something that you can and want to sustain on top of your graduate work? And more specifically, is it something that feeds the graduate work? Yeah. And so we have, I don't actually remember people working at Starbucks. Maybe that has happened, and I don't know. But we have, as Brianna mentioned, we've had a number of students teach at Valley Met and also at different places in the community. People also have non-work ways of being in the community, right? Whether that's through their creative practice or whether that's through their affiliation with a religious community, whether it is sustaining a yoga practice with our various yoga institutions around town. So whether that's going to our fantastic park situation. So there are certainly ways to be away from graduate school, some of which might look like more work if that's your interest or part of what you want for professional development. But the hope would be that every student is funded adequately, that they don't need to seek further employment and can actually really focus their energies on their graduate work and professional development. I hope that answers the question.
I will also add that there are some students that get their funding from outside the Department of Dance. When I was in the program, my graduate administrative associate position was in the graduate school office. So it was an 8 to 5 position that I was working my own classes around. We also had another student who got a graduate research associate position at the Wexner Center for the Arts or in the Department of Comparative Studies. So there are funding opportunities that are similar with work, stipend, some of student health insurance covered, that are outside of the department. Some people choose those, some people find them. It's very much like a quote normal job in that way, to find other kinds of employment either around the community or around the university. But the university jobs that are graduate, associate of some kind, teaching, research, or administrative, are what pays stipend, tuition, and student health insurance. Complicated, but possible.
Yeah. There are many balls that
many
we all juggle.
balls.
Yeah.
Everyone is different in graduate school.
It's true.
It's true.
All right.
Cool.
Unless there are any final thoughts, I think that's our time for this afternoon. Applications are due November 15th, followed by an audition in January. You can find out more about that on the website. It's been a pleasure being with you here today, virtually, via Zoom. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions. Amy, do you want to provide your email address?
dance@osu.edu, because schmidt.442@osu.edu, there's just too many consonants. Don't worry about the consonants, just dance@osu.edu. I'll get it.
Great. Thank you so much, and let us know if you have questions.
Bye!